Welcome back to the deep dive. We're doing something a little different today.
We are.
Usually, we're here tearing apart business strategies, maybe looking at the rise and fall of empires or dissecting these really complex historical events.
It's the big stuff, the macro view.
Exactly. But today, we are looking at the mechanics of a very specific and maybe a more personal kind of explosion, the midlife crisis of the female friendship.
It is a volatile mix. I mean, it really is. And our lab for this whole experiment is the book Roadside Sisters by Wendy Harmer.
Right. And on the surface, if you just, glance at the cover, it looks like a romp.
Totally. It feels like a road trip comedy. You see the messy van, you're imagining the wrong turns, the bad roadside food, all of that.
But if you looked under the hood, which is, of course, what we're here to do, it's actually a pretty brutal examination of the masks women wear.
And the price they pay. The price they pay for keeping them on for so long.
And the baggage they carry. We are going to talk a lot about baggage today.
So much baggage, both literal and metaphorical.
Mostly metaphorical, although.
Well, let's be honest. The literal baggage in this story is ridiculous enough to warrant its own segment.
I mean, it really is.
We're talking about Fabergé crystal in a camper van.
We will get to the crystal, I promise you we will. But let's set the scene before we even get to the luggage. We are tracking 3 women, Meredith, Nina, and Annie.
They're all in their late 40s, sort of closing in on 50, and the whole premise is a reunion, but it's not the happy, oh, let's grab a coffee kind of reunion, is it?
Not at all.
It's a forced proximity situation. I mean, these 3 haven't really functioned as a single unit for 20 years.
20 years. That's a long time to be out of sync.
It's a lifetime. So to understand them now, you really have to go back to their origin story. We have to go back to April 1987, which really frames the cultural reference point nicely.
Absolutely. The mid-'80s.
They were in a gospel choir. It was called Sanctified Soul, and they were part of the Melbourne cabaret scene.
Which paints such a vivid picture right there. I mean, when you think about the mid-'80s cabaret scene in Australia, it wasn't polished pop music.
No, it was experimental. It was gritty. It was a bit raw.
That feeling of, limitless creative potential. Singing in smoky basements with maybe a trumpet player and a rented sound system that crackles.
Oh, yeah. Big hair, huge shoulder pads, and just the smell of hairspray and stale beer hanging in the air. They were young, they were a 7-piece unit, and they really thought they were going to conquer the world.
Or at least the inner-city club circuit of Melbourne.
At the very least. But of course, fast forward 2 decades, and the music stopped a long, long time ago. The band has broken up.
And even though they all live within, a 15-kilometer radius of each other in Melbourne?
They might as well be on different planets emotionally.
That really is the tragedy of the setup, isn't it?
Yeah.
That they've drifted into these incredibly rigid, separate archetypes. They aren't the girls from the band anymore.
Not at all. They're the successful business owner. You've got the self-sacrificing mother and the confident career woman. And those labels, you start to realize, have become cages.
But they are forced back together. There's a catalyst.
There always is.
Meredith's daughter, Sigrid, is getting married, all the way up in Byron Bay. And in what I can only describe as a moment of alcohol-fueled nostalgia, I think grappa was the culprit.
It's always the grappa, isn't it? They're at a dinner, they start getting all sentimental about the good old days, you know how it is, and they make a fatal error in judgment.
A truly terrible decision. They decide to skip the flight. They decide to drive.
Which, on paper, it sounds like this amazing bonding experience. Let's reclaim our youth. Let's hit the open road, Thelma and Louise.
The fantasy of it is so appealing.
But the reality of a road trip, especially with people you haven't really connected with in 2 decades, is very, very different from the fantasy.
And this is where the mission of our deep dive really kicks in.
Yeah.
Because they don't just take a car, they don't rent a sensible SUV or anything like that.
No, they take a monster.
They take the Roadmaster Royale.
And this vehicle, it's essentially the 4th character in the book. It really is.
I want to spend a moment on it.
Yeah.
Because the description is it's an assault on the senses. And it really sets the tone for everything that's about to happen.
So picture this. It is a 7.2-meter white behemoth. It's just huge.
Unwieldy.
Incredibly difficult to park. A complete nightmare to maneuver through, small town streets.
Yeah.
But the size, that's not even the primary issue. It's the branding.
The decoration.
Yeah, Nina borrows it from her father-in-law, right? And it features this massive decal on the side. It's Elvis Presley.
And we should be clear. It's not a tasteful portrait of Elvis. We're not talking about a subtle silhouette from his early years.
Oh, absolutely not. This is full action Las Vegas Elvis. We are talking the white jumpsuit era, pelvis thrusting, microphone held high, just screaming rock and roll at anyone who happens to pass them on the highway.
It's aggressive.
It is. And if that wasn't enough to make you just want to sink down and hide in the footwell,
Okay.
there's the back of the van.
The piece de résistance, as they say.
A giant, holographic Confederate flag stretching from tail light to tail light.
Which, for a road trip in Australia, is already such a bizarre and jarring cultural clash. I mean, you see that imagery sometimes, but it carries such a specific, heavy, loaded connotation.
And it creates this immediate friction. It sets up the core conflict of the group perfectly before they've even loaded a single suitcase.
How so?
Well, you have Meredith, who we'll learn is this high-end interior designer, a woman who curates her life down to the millimeter.
Everything has to be just so.
Exactly. And she is standing there next to a thrusting Elvis van with a giant Confederate flag on the back. She is just mortified.
She calls it a traveling carny bus.
It offends her aesthetic sensibilities on absolutely every level.
Yeah.
Her main concern is who is going to see her in this thing.
Which is Meredith's defining trait, right?
Yeah.
The fear of being seen as anything less than perfect, less than tasteful.
And then you get the perfect contrast with Nina. Nina, the peacemaker, immediately tries to spin it.
How do you spin that?
She starts arguing that the jewels on Elvis's jumpsuit are reflective, so it's actually a safety feature.
That is such a specific and, frankly, desperate type of logic. It's not ugly, it's safety conscious.
It's the logic of someone who is fundamentally terrified of conflict. She knows it's hideous. She knows Meredith is about to have a meltdown. But instead of just saying, look, it's a free van, Meredith, get over it, she has to find a practical justification to smooth it all over. She's already managing Meredith's emotions before the trip has even begun.
And then you've got Annie, the cynic, the third point of the triangle.
Annie just takes one look at the whole setup, compares them to the Beverly Hillbillies, and then just asks where the vodka is.
She doesn't care about the aesthetics.
Not at all. She just wants to know if the escape hatch is open. The escape hatch for her is alcohol.
So the stage is set. This ridiculous, character-filled van is waiting. Now let's talk about what they bring into this van, because the packing scene is arguably one of the most revealing parts of the entire book.
It really is.
It tells us everything we need to know about why these women are so unhappy before they've even turned the key in the ignition.
It's the baggage made visible. It's a brilliant device by Wendy Harmer. The physical objects they choose to pack are perfect representations of their psychological deficits.
Let's start with Meredith, the director. She is going camping in a van with a thrusting Elvis on the side. You would expect, what? Sleeping bags, maybe some plastic plates, a torch.
Practical stuff, rugged stuff, things you don't mind getting dirty.
But Meredith brings fallow-colored linens.
High thread count, I'm sure.
Of course. She brings finished crockery, not paper plates, ceramic, designer crockery from her shop.
Your game site.
And, this is the real kicker, she brings the wedding gift for Sigrid. It is a boxed set of Fabergé crystal stemware.
Worth $1,000.
She brings Fabergé crystal into the Elvis van.
She packs it right there in one of the little cupboards.
That is just, it's insane. It is an act of profound delusion.
But you have to look at the why. It represents her complete and utter inability to adapt. Meredith uses taste as a shield, as a weapon. She cannot lower her personal standards to meet the reality of her situation.
So she tries to force reality to meet her standards.
Precisely. She is trying to impose the aesthetics of Tuac, which for our international listeners is a very wealthy, very manicured suburb in Melbourne, onto a dusty highway and a muddy campsite.
It's a total control freak move. If she controls the environment, if she's drinking her wine out of crystal, maybe she doesn't have to deal with the chaos that's boiling up inside her.
If the circuit was perfect, maybe nobody will notice the deep cracks in the foundation. It's all about maintaining that veneer.
Okay, now let's look at Nina's luggage. Nina is the mother of 3 teenage boys, wife to a football-obsessed husband named Brad.
And she packs frozen meals.
For the road trip. For the 3 of them.
No, that would be too simple. She packs them for the family she's leaving behind. She packs weeks' worth of bolognese, stews, casseroles, all color-coded, labeled, even though they are perfectly capable of ordering a pizza or, going to the grocery store.
That feels like more than just being helpful. That's frantic.
It is. It's a psychological tether.
Yeah.
She cannot let go of her role as the provider, as the central hub of the family. She packs as if she's feeding an army during a siege because deep down, she is terrified that if she isn't actively useful, she doesn't exist.
Oh.
She can't actually believe her family can survive without her because if they can, then what is she for?
That is such a painful realization, that she's orchestrating her own indispensability simply because she feels so completely disposable.
Exactly that. And then you have Annie.
Annie packs for a different kind of survival trip entirely.
She brings cases of wine and vodka.
Plural. Cases.
Plural. She packs designer clothes. I think the book mentions 7 pairs of shoes. High heels for a camping trip in the bush.
Right.
And most importantly, she brings her BlackBerry.
The crackberry, as it was known.
The digital leash. She is physically present in the van, but her mind is always somewhere else. She brings her escape hatches, the alcohol to numb the immediate reality, and the phone to keep her tethered to her career, which is the only place left where she feels validated and successful.
She's terrified of silence. She can't be alone with her own thoughts.
Absolutely not. So you have the controller with her crystal, the martyr with her frozen bolognese, and the escapist with her vodka and her BlackBerry. And you trap them all in a tin box for 2 weeks.
It's a recipe for disaster.
It's the concept of the third place gone horribly wrong. You know, a third place is supposed to be this neutral ground where you can relax, but the van is a pressure cooker. In a house, you can go to another room. You can close a door, get some space.
Not in the Roadmaster Royale.
In the Roadmaster Royale, you are bumping elbows every time you move. You are smelling every smell. There is literally nowhere for those carefully constructed masks to hide.
The director facade that Meredith wears, the happy helper mask Nina has, the confident career woman mask Annie puts on every morning.
They are all going to slip. It's inevitable.
Let's drill down into these archetypes then, because Harmer gives them some really interesting and quite painful backstories that explain why they are this way. Let's start with Meredith, the director.
On the surface, she's just a snob, right? She runs an expensive interior design store called Flair. She obsesses over paint colors with these absurd names like Bowl and Quambatuk.
Which is funny, but as you dig into it, it becomes quite tragic. We learn her husband, Donald, has recently left her. And the catalyst wasn't some dramatic affair. It wasn't about money. It was about paint.
He left her over paint?
Effectively, yes. He had a den. It was his one space in the house, his man cave, if you will. He liked it dark green, probably a bit old-fashioned, a bit dingy, but it was his.
And Meredith couldn't stand it. It didn't fit the aesthetic of the rest of the perfectly curated house.
So while he was out one day, she just painted it.
What color?
Something like mallard gray. Very stylish, very tasteful, very cold.
And he came home.
And he felt erased. That is the key word the book uses. He felt like his identity had been painted over. He realized that to Meredith, the aesthetic of the house, the idea of perfection, was more important than his comfort than his actual presence. So he packed a bag and left.
That is such a powerful metaphor. She literally curated him out of existence.
But we have to ask why. Why does she do this? Is she just a monster? And the book says no. It takes us back to her mother wound.
Her mother, Edith.
Her mother, Edith, had a crystal cabinet. And all the good things, the nice plates, the silver cutlery, the crystal glasses, they were locked away behind glass for special occasions.
That never came.
Exactly. They never used them. They ate off chip everyday plates while all the beauty just gathered dust.
So Meredith has swung to the complete other extreme. She refuses to save things for best. She believes in using the good stuff now.
But it's become twisted, hasn't it? She became rigid about it. She isn't using the good stuff for joy. She's using it as a tool for control. She projects this image of perfection because underneath it all, she is pure chaos.
And that chaos is coming from her relationship with her daughter.
She's estranged from Sigrid. And this is a huge detail that gets dropped in. She has never even met the man Sigrid is marrying.
The groom. She's the mother of the bride, and she is a total stranger to the groom.
The anxiety from that must be eating her alive. She feels she's failed as a mother because her daughter keeps her at such a distance, so she compensates with things, with objects.
With the crystal glasses. If she can't offer genuine emotional closeness, she'll offer good taste. It's a transaction, isn't it? I don't know who you are or who you're marrying, but here is $1,000 glass.
It's heartbreaking. Now, let's turn to Nina. If Meredith is the director, Nina is the martyr. Or the gatherer. And there is this concept in the book that I think will resonate with a lot of people, the burnt chop syndrome.
Oh, this is a heavy one. And it's so recognizable. It refers to a specific scene, but really it's a whole lifestyle for Nina.
Break it down for us.
Imagine a family barbecue. There are lamb chops on the grill. One gets a bit burnt. It's black, it's crispy, it's dry. Who eats it?
The mom. Every single time.
Right. She takes the burnt ones so the husband and the kids can have the good ones. She voluntarily assumes the role of the garbage disposal for the family's discomfort. Nina does this with everything.
Give us another example.
In the van, there are 3 beds. Annie, being agile, grabs the top bunk. Meredith, of course, demands the most comfortable back bed. That leaves the middle one.
The one that has to be assembled from the dining table every night and disassembled every morning.
The lumpy, inconvenient makeshift bed, she takes it. Without a fight, without a word. She doesn't even suggest they draw straws or take turns. She just assumes, deep in her bones, that she deserves the worst option.
It's learned helplessness on a profound level. And we see it with her family, too. She's constantly checking in, calling them from the road.
And they don't answer. Or when they do, they're completely indifferent. Her son Jordan doesn't even know where his dad is when she calls him. He's just like, I don't know, he's out.
It just reinforces her deepest fear, which is that she's invisible. She isn't a person to them. She is a function. She is the cooker, the cleaner, the driver, the schedule keeper.
And if the function isn't being performed right there in front of them, they don't miss the person. They just notice the service has been interrupted.
That is just brutal.
It is. And physically, she feels that invisibility, too. The book talks about how she's gained weight over the years. She feels the male gaze has passed her by. She looks at Meredith's effortless elegance. Meredith is tall, slim, always in linen. And then she looks at Annie's city slicker flashiness, and she just feels like a frump, like she's disappeared inside her own body.
Which brings us to Annie, the drifter. She looks, on the surface, like she has it all figured out. Gucci sunglasses, a Mini Cooper, a successful career as a real estate agent. She's the fun aunt archetype.
But she's the ferret in a round cage.
Explain that image. It's such a specific and powerful anxiety metaphor.
Annie is actually a farm girl. She's from a small country town called Tongala. She grew up with dirt under her fingernails, with animals. But she escaped to the city and now lives in this sleek, minimalist apartment.
The life she thought she wanted.
Right. But she describes the city as a round cage. You just run and run and run in circles until you drop. There are no corners to hide in. You have to keep moving, keep performing, keep selling. But the problem is she can't go back to the country because now she finds it depressing and flat and boring. She's stuck between these 2 worlds, belonging to neither of them.
And she's the single, childless woman in a group of mothers, which brings its own dynamic.
It does. It adds to her sense of isolation. And we learn her ex-husband, Cameron, left her. And it wasn't for another woman. He left her for a man, for Patrick.
That is a very specific, very complicated kind of rejection to process.
It's so hard to process. It's not just you aren't pretty enough or you aren't exciting enough. It's you aren't the right gender. It fundamentally messes with her sense of identity and femininity.
She feels like she's been put in a career woman showcase.
Exactly. Admired for her suit, admired for her sales figures, but not chosen for a real messy life partnership. And so she drinks. She uses the vodka to try and blur the edges of the cage she's trapped in.
So the trip begins. We have our 3 archetypes locked in the van. This brings us to segment 3, the dynamics on the road. The van starts moving, and immediately reality starts punching holes in their carefully constructed bubbles.
And the first big one is the Yabos incident.
This is a classic prejudice trap. They pull into a campsite for the night, it's getting dark, and they meet 2 guys, Maddie and Zoran. Now, looking at them through Meredith's eyes, what do we see?
We see the stereotype. Flannelette shirts, fishing gear, stubbies of beer, a beat-up ute. To Meredith, these are yabos. They are uncultured morons.
Her immediate reaction is to lock the doors.
She assumes they're dangerous, or at the very least that they have absolutely nothing of value to offer her. But Annie is the wild card here.
She's just looking for a drink and a distraction from her own thoughts.
So she wanders over to their campfire to hang out with them.
And the twist.
They aren't just yabos. I mean, they look like yabos, but they're union officials.
They're organizers.
Yes. They spend the entire night drinking beer and discussing social justice, the crisis in housing affordability, the impact of globalization on local jobs, the rights of workers. It is this fantastic subversion of expectations.
It's a direct slap to Meredith's snobbery. She judged the book entirely by its flannelette cover.
But it also does something important for Annie's character. It highlights her superpower, which is code switching.
Explain that.
Annie can sell $1 million apartment to a corporate CEO in the morning and then sit around a campfire and talk labor politics with union guys at night. It reminds us, and maybe reminds her, that she has this depth that she's been hiding under the Gucci sunglasses and the city life. She's far more adaptable than the other 2.
But the campsite isn't all deep political discussion. We also get the noise.
The authentic soundtrack of the Australian bush isn't always kookaburras and wind in the gum trees, is it?
Sometimes it's Meatloaf, blasting from the next 10 over at 10 p.m.
or AC/DC. Bat out of hell on a relentless loop. And this, of course, drives Meredith insane. She's trying to sleep on her fallow-colored pillowcases inside her Roadmaster Royale, and the chaotic, noisy, sweaty reality of other people is intruding.
It just emphasizes that fundamental truth of a road trip. You cannot control the environment.
You can't. And then the chaos becomes physical, the mosquito invasion.
A great slapstick moment, but it's also very symbolic.
Annie leaves the door open. She's been drinking. She's careless for a second. And the van just fills with mosquitoes, not one or two, a plague, a swarm.
And Meredith reacts like she's under a military attack.
She's spraying cans of insecticide like it's a chemical weapon. Nina is wrapped in a doona outside, shivering. It is the natural world physically invading her controlled, curated environment. You cannot air condition the bush. You cannot interior design nature away.
And the inevitable breaking point, the crystal.
Chekhov's crystal. You knew it had to happen. If you introduce $1,000 of fragile, ridiculously out-of-place glass in Act 1 of a road trip story,
it absolutely must be smashed by Act 3.
and it's Nina who does it.
Yeah.
She's frustrated. The boys aren't answering her calls. The tension in the van is peaking. They're all arguing. And she just kicks the camp chairs back into the storage locker. Just a single moment of pent-up frustration.
And you hear that sound. Smash.
The sickening sound of $1,000 disintegrating into dust and shards. The wedding gift is gone.
Meredith is obviously horrified.
Of course. But from an analytical standpoint, this is a necessary moment. It had to break. You cannot bring Fabergé crystal on a road trip. It is fundamentally incompatible with the journey they are on.
The smashing of the glass is the shattering of Meredith's illusion that she can impose Turak standards on real life.
Exactly. The facade is broken. The gift is gone. Now she has to show up to her daughter's wedding with nothing but herself.
Which is her absolute biggest fear.
Her biggest fear.
Just as all these internal dynamics are falling apart, the book throws in an external reflector, a kind of ghost at the feast. The fourth sister, who isn't on the trip, Corinne.
Corinne Jacobson. She was the other member of the choir, the one who made it. She became a big TV host, a household name.
And the resentment in that van is thick enough to cut with a knife. Meredith feels betrayed because she thinks Corinne dropped them, that Corinne thinks she's too good for them now.
Nina, on the other hand, kind of idolizes her success. She sees Corinne as someone who escaped. But then they stop at a cafe in Tilba, this cute little heritage town, perfect for sounds and tea, and they see a newspaper headline.
A very blunt headline. Corinne boned.
It's such a brutal Australian slang term. For our international listeners, it means fired, but with a real sense of aggression to it. It implies being discarded, gutted.
And the article explains she's been replaced by a much younger woman, Candace Byrne, because the network wants a fresh direction.
And we all know the code, don't we? Fresh direction just means fewer wrinkles.
Fresh direction means she turned 50 and the camera or the executives didn't like it anymore.
The reaction of the three women to this news is so incredibly telling.
Meredith feels schadenfreude. Pure and simple. She makes a nasty crack about Corinne's Botox brow finally collapsing on her. She sees it as cosmic justice for Corinne selling out and leaving them behind. She's happy to see the mighty fall.
But Annie gets angry, really angry.
Why Annie?
Because Annie sees the system at play. She sees the blatant ageism and sexism. She knows that Corinne wasn't fired for incompetence. She was fired for the crime of aging in public. Annie's in real estate. It's a very visual, client-facing industry, and she knows that clock is ticking for her as well. She feels that threat personally.
And Nina, the empath, just feels pity.
Of course. But this moment is the pivot for the whole deep dive, really. It moves beyond their petty squabbles in the van. It becomes about the fact that society is actively trying to erase all of them. Corinne had the money, the fame, the success, and none of it protected her from being deemed irrelevant.
It's a huge wake-up call. It shows them that individual success doesn't protect you from the passage of time or from how society treats women of a certain age.
And it unites them in a very strange way. For the first time, it gives them a common enemy that isn't each other. The enemy is invisibility. They're in this van fighting each other, but the world outside is fighting all of them.
So as they get closer and closer to Byron Bay, the breakdown starts to lead to some breakthroughs. They start to put themselves back together, but differently. Let's look at these personal growth moments, starting with Nina.
Nina has this absolutely pivotal scene, the swim.
She goes down to the beach at dawn, all by herself.
Now, you have to remember, usually Nina hides her body. She wears big T-shirts over her swimmers. She wraps a towel tight around her waist. She's always worrying about what Brad thinks or what other people on the beach think. She carries the shame of her weight like it's extra luggage.
But this time is different.
This time she just dives in, and the text describes her feeling like a slice of peach.
It's such a beautiful, simple image.
It's so sensory. It's light, it's sweet, it's natural. For the first time in what feels like forever, she isn't weighing herself down with the mental load of the frozen bolognese or the kids' football schedules. She is just a body in water, and she feels buoyant.
And then the test comes. As she's coming out of the water, she runs into Maddie the Yabo from the campsite.
And this is such a crucial moment. Her internal narrative, the voice in her head, is screaming, "He will look at me with disgust. I am fat. I am unwashed. I am a middle-aged mother." She literally braces herself for the rejection.
But he doesn't reject her.
He doesn't even flinch. He just treats her normally. He treats her like a human being. He smiles. He remembers her name. He chats with her about how cold the water is.
He even asked about her partner, Meredith, playing along with the ruse they had set up earlier to keep unwanted male attention away.
And that little act of respect, of recognition, it boosts her confidence immensely. It directly challenges her internal narrative that she is repulsive or invisible to men. It's such a small interaction. But for Nina, it's monumental. It proves to her that the burnt chop mentality is all in her own head. She doesn't have to take the worst option. She can be the peach.
Then we have Meredith's unraveling. And I mean that in a good way. A de-armoring.
Meredith starts to let the wild in. She goes fishing with Annie and the guys. And she catches a fish.
A black bream.
And she cooks it over an open fire.
No finished crockery in sight.
Eating off a plastic plate outdoors, she gets smoke in her eyes, her hands are dirty, she definitely smells like fish. And she has this moment where she realizes she is actually enjoying it.
There's this great moment where she reflects on her childhood, on the miserable Sunday drives with her parents, Bernie and Edith.
Those drives were just awful. They would sit on the side of a dusty road eating soggy tomato sandwiches while being attacked by flies, and her father would just keep saying, "What a fascinating day." It was this performative enjoyment, a forced memory making.
That explains so much about her.
It explains everything. It's why she tries to curate every single experience now. She is desperately trying to correct the misery of her own childhood. She wants the Sunday drive to look like a magazine spread so it doesn't feel like a soggy sandwich.
But on this trip, by catching the fish and getting her hands dirty, she realizes that the primal nature of the experience is actually more satisfying than the crystal cabinet ever was.
She's learning to enjoy the mess. She realizes she doesn't need to control the experience to enjoy it. In fact, her control was ruining it.
And finally, Annie's realization.
Annie has her moment of clarity watching a young couple in the town of Tathra. She just sees them strolling along the beach, barefoot, easy, happy, simple. And she realizes the ferret in a round cage life she's been living is a choice.
She starts to reconnect with her roots, doesn't she?
Completely. She remembers. She knows how to fish, she knows how to build a fire, she knows the land, she understands the country in a way she can't understand the city. And she has this dawning realization that the city life, the real estate game, isn't working. It's killing her. So she starts considering buying a small farm.
A sea change, as they call it.
Like a complete life change. Merging her country skills, which she'd suppressed, with her desire for a fresh start. And she reinterprets the tarot card she drew earlier in the trip.
The death card.
Right. At the start of the trip, she drew the death card and was terrified. She took it literally, thinking it meant literal death or some huge disaster.
But now she sees the real symbolism.
She understands it now. It means transformation. The death of the old, stuck, drinking Annie, and the birth of something new and unknown.
So we're leaving them there for now, on the road. They have moved from the suburbs of Melbourne, through the dry housing estates and empty paddocks, all the way up to the beautiful Sapphire Coast.
But they aren't fixed yet. And I think that's really important to note. This isn't a fairy tale where one road trip solves 20 years of problems.
Right. Meredith is slightly less rigid, but she is still bossy as hell.
Nina is now terrified because she still can't reach her husband. She's spiraling, convincing herself that he has left her for good.
And Annie is just at the very beginning of contemplating a huge, terrifying life change.
But they are different. They are fundamentally different than they were when they were standing in that driveway in Melbourne.
The Roadmaster Royale has done its job. It shook them up. It broke the crystal. It forced them to look at the thrusting Elvis decal and confront the the ridiculous reality of their own lives.
So what does this all mean for us? Why should we care about three fictional women in a van?
I think it comes back to that image you mentioned, the ferret in a round cage. It's a really provocative thought to leave you with.
Are we running in these endless circles because of the environment we've built for ourselves? Because we've bought the expensive apartment or the Fabergé crystal or bought into the role of the perfect mother?
Or are we just running because we're too afraid to stop, too afraid of what we might find in the silence if we did?
Exactly. Sometimes you have to get in a ridiculous van with a thrusting Elvis on the side to realize you can actually step out of the cage whenever you want.
And for anyone listening who feels like day after day, you're the one taking the burnt chop, maybe it's time to demand the fresh one.
Or at the very least, just stop cooking them for everyone else.
That is a wrap on our deep dive into Roadside Sisters. Thanks for riding shotgun with us.
Drive safely.
We'll see you next time.